Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the On-Screen podcast. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we have a bunch of stuff to talk about. Stuff we've been watching individually, what we've been watching together, mainly What If, and also, some news stories and some stuff that's coming up on the horizon. Let's get started with our news stories in our segment On Beat. On Beat is a segment where we talk about our upcoming news stories, things that are interesting to us in the fields of TV, film, and video games. Our first story is that Marvel is planning a Halloween special on Disney Plus with a Latino lead, and the heavy speculation is that this could be Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, this is super exciting, just because I really want to explore the supernatural side of the MCU. And it's the same thing, like I got super excited when they announced they were doing Blade, because I really want there to be a new Blade movie in the MCU.
Doctor Strange can't be the only, magical thing.
Oh, yeah, that's more on the magic. So far, Doctor Strange hasn't really gotten into the supernatural stuff. So it'd be really, really cool to start seeing the supernatural stuff, and Werewolf by Night is perfect place to start. I kind of like when they say like Halloween special, it has like holiday special has certain connotations where it's like something like really cheesy. So I hope this is just going to be straight like Werewolf by Night, like a pilot, and not like try to be like all Happy Halloween or some shit. Just do something cool, please.
I think kind of what it means is it's going to be like basically a short movie, but for Disney Plus instead of theaters. Yeah. I think that's kind of what they mean. Like it's just going to be an episode of that, and that introduces it into the MCU, and then hopefully they can do more with that later.
Yeah, hopefully.
I don't know too terribly much about Werewolf by Night. I've only kind of vaguely heard about it.
I don't know too much about it, but he's a werewolf. That's all I need to know.
By night.
By night. Not by day. That's all I really need to know about it. Werewolves are cool, and it's supernatural stuff. So, you can start bringing in more of these supernatural characters. You can eventually do Midnight Suns. You can do all kinds of cool things with that. They can bring Dracula into the MCU at some point.
Bring all that in, and then bring in Mephisto, and you have your devil and your vampire and your werewolf.
Yes.
And you have Doctor Strange, so you have your witches and sorcerers and everything too. So
yeah, well, you got witches. You got Agatha.
That's right.
Yeah,
Agatha
you got
all
a
along.
witch. You got a witch in the MCU already.
She's been there all along.
She's been there all along. So now we good.
Yeah. Our next story, American Vandal, which is a show that we've talked about a lot on this podcast, that we were big fans of both seasons. If you go back to our old podcast, The Weekly Set, we covered both seasons on different episodes of that. So we were really big into American Vandal. The creators of that show are now making an esports mockumentary series on Paramount Plus. It's going to be called Players. So I don't really care about esports, I
don't care about esports, but the thing about it is it doesn't matter because obviously it's a subject that's ripe for parody.
Yeah, I think it's more just, it's the people, Right. American Vandal was good, really good, surprisingly good. And I'm interested in anything they're going to do. And if it's along the same lines, which as a mockumentary, that's what American Vandal was. It was a mockumentary, that's their wheelhouse. That's what they've already shown themselves to be good at. So I'm excited about anything that they're going to actually do, but I'm just not too terribly interested in the subject. So I'm hopeful that this ends up being just a surprise in the same way that American Vandal was.
If it's funny, it doesn't matter what the subject is.
Yeah. That's what American Vandal was so good about, that was that it was funny, and then it took this serious turn and really had depth to it. So I'm wondering what they're going to end up doing with this, But I'm excited just because of who's involved. Our next news story is Cobra Kai Season 5 has been announced. Season 4 has not yet premiered. I don't think they haven't even released a trailer for it yet. They've done like a teaser, but that's it.
Big vote of confidence by Netflix, basically.
Yeah. A lot of people thought Season 4 was going to be the end because of the way it's heading into like a big tournament kind of thing. And it's kind of starting to touch on like Karate Kid 3 material, which is kind of like the end of the original Karate Kid series.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think they've said before that they had plans for, at least 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So they've already plotted it out to a season 5. So yeah, season 4 wasn't going to be the end unless the powers that be deemed it to be the end, which
Hilary Swank's going to show up for season 5.
They could do that. I wouldn't rule it out at this point. Who knows?
on a little sad note to close out with, Ed Asner passed away recently.
Yes.
And I think that might be one of his last performances was in Cobra Kai as Johnny Zabka's stepfather.
Stepfather, yeah.
So, yeah, Ed Asner, legend.
Good old Ed Asner.
Sad to see him go.
Rest in peace. You were fantastic. Provide a lot of entertainment over the years.
Yep. Our last news story, Yakuza creator Toshihiro Nagoshi is now rumored to be, like heavily rumored, like it's pretty much known. It's just that it's not finalized, to be leaving Sega to join NetEase in what is being described as a retaliatory move against Tencent, who has been buying up talent like crazy. Both like full studios and individual talent as well.
What I understand is NetEase is now themselves poaching talent from all the top Japanese gaming studios. Apparently they've been poaching talent from Namco, from Capcom, just anybody you could think of for their studio. And it looks like Nagoshi is going to be their latest, who they're trying to get.
Guess we're never going to get that Nagoshi Switch game, huh?
No.
That one that at the Switch reveal event, he went up on stage and discussed. I think he was just discussing his next PS5 game.
Yeah, I don't know. Like he's made comments about like he doesn't like have an overall positive opinion about the Switch.
Which just makes it funny that he showed up at their reveal show.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about this? NetEase, like Tencent, is not exactly a company that fans are really enthusiastic about.
No, they make like online games and mobile games and crap,
free to play and stuff. And
I don't really care about the games they make. So yeah, it kind of sucks that they're like poaching talented people to hopefully not make more garbage. But we'll see.
I mean, they have a significant investment in Platinum Games, and Platinum still seems to be holding to what they're doing, except for that awful fucking game they're doing for Babylon Fall, is it?
Yeah.
That everybody was psyched for.
We don't talk about that one.
Hopefully that's not like the first sign of Tencent ruining a company,
Yeah, hopefully.
And that's the end of our On Beat section. Our next segment is On the Horizon. This is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so. Basically a week and a half, 2 weeks. On the horizon. So we already talked about these last week, but I just decided to put these in here as a reminder. What We Do in the Shadows comes out tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday, September 1st. So September 2nd, What We Do in the Shadows and AP Bio both return. And the next day on Friday, Shang Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings return. We already talked about those. If you want to hear kind of our thoughts about those coming up, check out last week's podcast. But here's what's coming up after that. Impeachment, American Crime Story is coming to FX on Tuesday, September 7th. So this is about the Bill Clinton impeachment. I take it you're not necessarily a fan of this?
No, I don't care about the subject matter at all. So I don't care about the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky scandal. The whole thing was ridiculous. It was ridiculous that the media spent all that time talking about it.
Yeah. As far as it's that time in the 90s when the media lost their minds about a blowjob.
Yeah. I really do not care if the president is cheating on his wife. Sorry. That seems like a personal issue between Bill and Hillary, not like national news. And so, like, yeah, I don't really care to watch.
I'm not interested in it myself, but the reason to bring it up here is this is probably going to get a lot of awards contention, as the O.J. Simpson's trial one did. Also coming out on Thursday, September 9th, on Peacock, is a new game show based on Frogger.
I saw a tweet about this.
They're being really timely, aren't they?
I saw a tweet about this where, like, the tweet said, Konami can only get pleasure now from inflicting as much pain as possible onto its fans.
What I just find about this is, like, it's like somebody said, like, you know, these video games are hot. We need to buy one of the hot properties right now so we can do something with it. What's available? Frogger. Ooh, is that one of the hot games right now? It's just like the idea that, like, this is what, you know, if they're going to do something, a video game or a game show based on a video game, that they're going to, like, pick Frogger in 2021.
I mean, your options are limited, right? What translates to a good game show?
Mario Party.
Overwatch? Like, I don't know.
It's just Genshin Impact. They just announce a new contestant every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes.
It's a gotcha. They come out of a gotcha capsule.
I don't know. It's weird. I don't know why this exists.
Are they just going to be running across the street hoping not to get hit by cars?
Well, there's like, well, if you played Frogger, you know, there's multiple components to it. It's not just a street. There's the street with the cars. Then there's the stream with the lily pads and the logs and the gators. And then, like, there's the other section.
Got it. So we're not just going to kill contestants with cars, but also with alligators.
Yes.
There's been, like, this weird recent trend on streaming services of game shows that are just kind of like silly ones. Like, they did The Floor is Lava game show. I know I haven't seen that, but I know it exists. This seems kind of like to fit into that category. Like, it's going to be more like tongue in cheek. Like, we realize this is really stupid kind of thing, you know, like, we realize this is stupid, but we're in on the joke.
Yes.
I'm not too terribly interested, though, but it does cross two of our mediums that we discuss on this podcast. Then on September 10th, we have two fairly big game releases. First, WarioWare Get It Together comes to the Nintendo Switch. There's a demo available for that right now. I've played it. It's good. The only disappointment for me is I was kind of excited about the multiplayer stuff, and I tried playing the demo with my mom, and she just, I don't know, like, sometimes she just doesn't know how to use an analog stick.
I mean,
like, she was kind of flicking the stick instead of, like, putting her thumb on it and moving it. So she was having a lot of trouble. Once it got to the part, there's a character in it where you aim, like, to shoot at things. And once it got to that, like, she just couldn't play. She didn't know what to do.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a problem with the game.
No, it just sounds like a problem with my enjoyment.
Yes.
You know, like, so I'm not sure. It just means that it went from being something that I was like, oh yeah, I'll day one that, to, like, maybe I'll wait for it to be on sale. Like, you know, it's like I was going to play it with her a bit, and then I'm like, you know, if I'm going to have to play this just on my own, then this will be something I'll do, you know, a little down the line. But that's WarioWare Get It Together. Are you interested in this at all?
Yeah, I mean, WarioWare games are fun.
Yeah. Have you played the demo?
No.
It's pretty fun. It gives you a chance to try out a few different characters and stuff. And the other thing is, like, it abruptly, like, looks like the demo ends, and then it just drops you right back where you can keep playing, and, like, new stuff comes up. It's like, okay.
All right, well, that's cool.
And then the other big game coming out is Tales of Arise. It's the next game in the Tales of series, and it's coming to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. So basically, the last two generations of PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. I've played some of the Tales of games. Some of them I've liked. I think the series has been kind of going down the wrong direction for a while now. I think it was stagnant before, so it had to change. I just don't necessarily like the way it's changed, like the direction it's headed in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any of these systems either, except the PC, but my PC wouldn't run it. So this is kind of a non-issue for me. Are you excited about this at all?
It looks interesting. I've never played a Tales game, so I mean, I could tell you. It looks good. It looks like it might be a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big departure from the other Tales of games, so it's like a good fresh starting point, you know? You're not going to be jumping in going like, oh, it's expecting me to know all this shit and I don't know it, because they basically changed up the entire formula. It's kind of like starting on Breath of the Wild as your first Zelda. Like, it works because it's such a departure. But that's Tales of Arise, and that's the end of our segment for On the Horizon. Our next segment is On Tap. what we've been watching, what we've been playing, what's on tap. On Tap is where we talk about what we've been watching individually, independent of each other. So we talk about it with less spoilers. We try to not be spoilery when we discuss it, as opposed to full spoilers when we talk about something we've both been watching with all the spoilers attached, you know? So first up, you just finished the Fear Street Trilogy on Netflix.
Yes, I did. Really, really good. I watched the first one a while back. We talked about that on this podcast. Mm-hmm. We've already discussed that Fear Street 1994. So I got around to watching Fear Street, I believe 1978, and then Fear Street 1666. And yeah, very excellent. I especially loved 1978 because that was like a throwback to basically Friday the 13th. It was basically a Friday the 13th film.
Like late 70s, early 80s, like slasher movies?
Yes. Except with like much better characters.
Hey, I like Psychic Girl that I can't remember the name of from Friday the 13th Part 7.
Yes. we all love Psychic Girl from Friday the 13th Part 7. It's really cool. We go into these like time periods and stuff, but it's like all a continuing story from the first one. Basically, it's a story of like this curse that was put on the town, and the people in 1994, I guess, are trying to end it for all. And so we go back to the past a little bit to get more insight into what's been going on and how to solve the issues. And they really do a good job bringing it home and bringing everything to a satisfying conclusion. I love the characters in 1978 a lot more than I did in 1994. Mm-hmm. And then like 1666 is a little weird because like it's not a new cast in that one. The cast from like the first two, just playing characters in like that century.
So they're like playing their ancestors or something?
Yeah, they're playing their ancestors basically.
I was just going to ask about that. Like if it's an ongoing story and it's not resolved by the people in the present, then how does that work out? Like how does it come together? Like do the movies that take place further in the past, like the one in the 70s, the one in the 1600s, do those have parts that take place in not the present, but I guess the present of the series in 94?
Yes, they do. The end of 78 goes back to the present for like 5 minutes to like wrap that up. And then 1666 is interesting because we spend like about an hour in there. And then like at the end of that, like it does a cut and then it says, and it goes back to 1994. And then you get a title card. It cuts to a title card that says Fear Street 1994 Part 2. Huh. And then you get like about like another hour or so of that, and that wraps up the story.
It almost seems like they should have packaged this as a TV show and broken each movie into 2 episodes or something.
Yeah, it almost
like
seems like a
6-episode TV show or something.
Yeah, one of the reasons they were able to do it like this is because they did film each movie back to back. Mm-hmm. So it was like one long shoot for all 3 of them.
They Lord of the Rings did.
Yeah, they Lord of the Rings did. Yeah.
So that's the Fear Street Trilogy. Next up, I watched this like 2 weeks ago, but we had too much packed into last week's podcast, so I didn't want to add that in. But I watched Free Guy, the Ryan Reynolds movie that's basically like, we've been talking about all the what if stuff with, what's going to be in our full spoiler segment. Free Guy is basically what if a NPC in GTA came to life or like gained sentience,
Yeah.
It's a really good movie, but it's got one big issue. And that big issue is that they decided to kind of reach out to a bunch of like streamers, a lot of the worst ones, the most annoying,
the worst ones,
most talentless ones. And they feature them prominently throughout the movie. They'll like cut from like something happening, Ryan Reynolds doing something crazy in the world, and then they cut to like, streamers reacting to it. And it's kind of like, when you watch a movie and they have like they cut to like a news story and they have like somebody playing a news reporter and it's like a real news reporter. It's like, it's like Don Lemon's like in this movie talking about like aliens invading.
Right.
As if it's like real, like it gives gives that kind of connection to reality. That's kind of what they're trying to do, but like with video game streamers, like they're reacting to the stuff happening in the video game.
That just sounds painful, though.
And it is.
I would take a cut of the film without it cutting to streamers doing stupid reactions.
And the main thing is they can't act. So you basically have a bunch of shots of Ninja trying to act like he's interested in what's happening in this movie, but just coming across like an attention whore that's like somehow wedged himself into a movie that he shouldn't be in. And that's the problem with Free Guy.
that's wrong with Free Guy.
That's that and a bunch of like Fortnite dances throughout it, which are also big annoyances for me. So
I don't know. I don't think I'm the demographic for this film.
We talked about this a while ago, and I had mentioned my problems with the streamers and stuff, and I said I wish you could cut all of that out. And you said, I'll make a cut. I'll remove all of that. And my instant response was, release the Robic cut. I really want that cut of Free Guy. I really want a cut of Free Guy where they cut out all of the superfluous dancing. Some of it's you can't,
So are you suggesting that the movie was good enough to where it would be worth it to watch a cut with that stuff cut out?
If that stuff was cut out, definitely. It's an entertaining movie. It's good. It's got good actors in it playing good characters. It's got generally a good story. It's got a few, it's not the greatest. They could have done better with it, than they did, even besides the streamer stuff. But it's still good. The streamer stuff and the, Fortnite dances is kind of what hurts it more than anything. So I really wish that stuff wasn't in there. I really wish there was a way to watch it without that stuff in there. They should have just made like a different cut, maybe someday they will, but I doubt it. But that's Free Guy. I just wanted to shit on Ninja a little because he's really annoying. And he hurt a movie that I went to. And I'd be like watching the movie and I'd be kind of laughing and enjoying it.
Movie.
And then he would pop up and my eyes would instantly be rolling. Like, oh, this fuck again, And then also just yesterday, I went to another movie. I saw The Protege. So The Protege, let me describe the concept of the movie to you. And you can tell me how many hundreds of movies you've seen with the exact same concept. Okay. Young girl saved by an assassin who stumbles upon her while on a job. He raises her to be an assassin herself. Then he's attacked and she's out for revenge. Who took out the contract on her mentor?
Yeah, that sounds like
about 100 other movies you've seen.
Yeah, that sounds. It's a pretty generic sounding plot there.
Here's the difference, though. This movie stars Maggie Q, Samuel L. Jackson as the mentor character. Maggie Q is the lead, and Michael Keaton as like kind of a middleman between the main villain and he's kind of like the actionable person who works for the main villain.
So it sounds like it's got a good cast.
Yeah, and that's what makes this work, is that especially Maggie Q and Michael Keaton really elevate their roles. They add like a lot of charm, a lot of comedy, they make their characters very interesting. Michael Keaton in particular, he's a fantastic actor. And whenever he's attached to something, it's going to be at least a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit off normal. That's like his go-to, he goes a little bit off normal. And that's what he does here. And it really elevates his character and makes a character that would just be like like some stuntman that's like trying his part at acting character into something that's actually kind of interesting, So yeah, I think it's actually a worthwhile movie, but not because of the base concept, but because of how Keaton and Maggie Q elevate their roles and make them more interesting. So that's what I wanted to say about that, just because it's kind of interesting that, it's such a generic concept, but that they're able to kind of squeeze a little bit more out of that just by having a good cast that do interesting things. The next thing up is you've been playing Sekiro.
Well, I just started playing it today. I don't know if I've been playing it. I played it for a few hours today. I don't think I got...
That's enough. And in the current game journalism world, it's enough for you to review the game entirely now.
But yeah, I started playing it today. It's been on my list since I've been going through the Souls games since the Demon Souls remake came out back in November. So I've been kind of going through them, and Sekiro is like the last, I guess, Miyazaki Souls adjacent game I had left to get through. So I started that today. It's interesting. It's very different from all the other games, just because there's a lot more emphasis on like not only like parrying and like dodging, but also stealth. surprisingly, there is a whole stealth mechanic. In fact, like the first area you go through, like at the beginning of the game, you don't even have a weapon, so you literally have to do some stealth to just like get to the next part you need to get to.
Are you playing a ninja character?
You're a shinobi, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I thought it was like a Ronin or something, but I guess it's like a shinobi, yeah. So ninja.
Yeah, they refer to you as a shinobi, so
yeah.
The dude looks like he's dressed like a samurai, but whatever.
That's probably more historically accurate. I mean,
yeah.
Ninjas were more like they were spies, they fit in. They look
that makes sense why there's like a heavy stealth in this then, because you are supposed to be a ninja. So there's all the mechanics that you expect from a stealth game. There's, you crouch in the grass and enemies can't see you. There's a whole alert system where, if an enemy spots you, the enemy like has a triangle over their head. And then if it fills up, it gets to be yellow, which means they're cautious. Then red, they've definitely seen you and you're screwed. And the thing that helps is like you can't just like brute force your way through encounters. If enemies like spot you, they usually like gang up on you, and you have a tiny health meter. It's much smaller than any of the Souls games so far to start with. It is very small, and you have healing items, but like regular enemies, a regular enemy encountered with the health bar you get probably take like 3 or 4 hits from a weak enemy. Some of the bigger enemies, like the mini bosses, they could take you out with 1 hit easily. And that makes those encounters like those are like mandatory. Like you can't stealth your way out of that. So like you gotta stand and fight. And one of the things that gave me like the most trouble so far early on is like you come across like these soldiers who have like this big red ogre like chained up. And you kill the soldiers, and then like the ogre breaks out of his chains, and you gotta fight it. There's a mechanic in Sekiro where it's called death blows. So like your enemies have like what they call stance, and if you manage to break their stance by like successfully like parrying their shots or something, then like a red dot shows up, and if you hit R1 at the right time when the red dot shows up, then you'll do like a death blow. And that normally kills enemies in 1 hit. But some bosses, like mini bosses, they have like meters, they have like circles above their health meter, and those circles represent how many death blows it takes to kill them. So this ogre had like 2 of them. So basically what happens is like, so the ogre had like a health meter, and then as soon as you deplete its health meter, you got the opportunity to do a death blow, and then it'd lose a circle, then it'd get a new full health meter, and then you'd have to deplete its health again and do a second death blow to finish it off once and for all. Again, this ogre hit hard. It could usually kill you within 1 hit, maybe 2, depending. So like there was no room for error in this fight. And so I got pretty quick that's the game. That's the game.
Is it punishing? Because like there's 2 types. To me, there's 2 types of extreme difficulty. There's where it's really difficult, but then as soon as you lose, it just gets you right back at it. And then there's the kind that it's like, oh, you lost on this. Well, now you have to go back to like the beginning of the sequence. You have to sit through like 10 more cutscenes that you already watched again.
No.
It like punishes you for losing so that you have to like do all this shit again in order to get back into it. And then some games are just like immediate, like, try again, and you just jump right back in.
So far, no, it's not punishing. There's actually another mechanic that's not in Souls. That's in this that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's the resurrection mechanic. Right now, like I have like 1 resurrection I can do. So like what happens, like if you die, then like it'll ask you if you want to resurrect, and then you resurrect and you're right back in the fight. You can do that. If you die and you don't have any resurrections left, you can't resurrect, and then you go back to the last save point that you were at. Which for me, the last save point was right next to that ogre. So it wasn't like very far at all. Thing is, there are penalties though. If you die too much, there's something called like the dragon rot, which they describe as an illness. And they're like, oh, if you keep dying, you're going to be consumed by the dragon rot, and that's going to limit, and that apparently limits how much of like your items and stuff that you had when you died that you can recover when you come back.
Kind of like the opposite of what's going to be in the next thing we're talking about. Well, we'll get to that. Go on.
So there's that. So yeah, I didn't make it like too terribly far, I don't think, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. it's very difficult, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is so engaging that, yeah, I'm definitely going to put some time into this. And I'm probably going to be watching some videos and stuff to really like learn the ins and outs of the combat mechanics and stuff. But yeah, like the other Souls games, I'm enjoying myself. What a shock. Even though like I know like a lot of people who love Souls but hate this game. Mm-hmm. I can see why, because there is quite a bit about it that's different. Like especially the stealth. You're not doing stealth in Souls. That's not a thing. So I can see like a lot of people playing this for the first time and like really hating the stealth stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'm not like a huge stealth guy either, but it's fine. Like I played Metal Gear Solid, so it's fine.
So from one game by an auteur in the video game field to another game by an auteur in the video game field, I've been playing the new game by Suda51, No More Heroes 3. This came out on the 27th, and I've been playing it in a way so the weird thing about No More Heroes 3 is it's very different from like a regular video game experience, but it's kind of like it relies on formula. Like it's very much like it's a ranked battle. So like you're going from like 10 to 1, you know? You're trying to like, you're killing off each person down the line till you get to the number 1, and then you fight them, you know? That's how the game works. And so like between each boss fight, there's stuff you can do. There's like an overworld, you can do that. There's like story beats, and it's like, okay, like you have like a different type of story beat. Like, oh, now you're going to get this cutscene where Travis and his friend talk about like Takashi Miike films. He's like a real Japanese director. He's a very prolific Japanese director. He did a lot of horror films and Yakuza films and stuff. But like they have whole bits in the game where it's just Travis and his friend talking about Takashi Miike and discussing their favorite Miike movies and stuff. And it's like you'll have one of those after every boss fight. And then they also have like, they have a moment where the main bad guy of the series, Fu, who's this like intergalactic, you know, villain or whatever, this prince, where he's talking to the next ranked fighter you're going to be fighting against. And like they're having like a separate conversation. So you have all these like beats, like, okay, I'm at the next chapter. I need this element of this beat and this element of this beat. And so it's very like formulaic, but not like in a negative way, like just in the sense that there's literally a formula, you know, of the way that the structure of the game works. But then he'll fuck with the formula in ways like you'll go in to fight a boss, and then like right as you're about to fight the boss, like somebody else will jump in and murder that boss. And then you have to fight that other person, you know? And like somehow that ties into the story of like, oh, there's some other person who's getting involved in this way. And so like they do just kind of like cool things like that kind of like throw you off. But like it wouldn't be as effective if they didn't lock so much into a formula before that.
Right.
So it's really clever the way it does that. And this is nothing new to people that have played the series. This isn't like unique to 3. This is just like the way No More Heroes as a game series is structured.
So how does it compare to like the first 2?
Well, with No More Heroes, you kind of have like 2 schools of thought, basically. You have the people that prefer the first game, and those people are right. And then you have the people that prefer the second game, and those people are wrong.
Okay.
So
what about people who prefer the third game?
Well, the third game's new, so you have to like give that time to fit in.
No, but the main difference, to make a judgment now.
This is like No More Heroes 1.
Okay.
No More Heroes 3 is like No More Heroes 1. So the thing is that all of the games in the No More Heroes series, and every game that Suda51's ever been even vaguely attached to, is very unpolished. Like, you know, you're going to have like lots of graphical issues. You're going to have like bugs. It's just not, you're going to have some experiences that are not so great. That's just kind of like you got to take the bitter with the honey, or I don't know what would the appropriate expression be to like relate that. But you know what I mean? Like you have to kind of accept that you're going to have this like unpolished aspect in order to get all the cultish weird shit that like a Suda51 game has that like no other game does. And in No More Heroes 2, they kind of toned a lot of that down. Like there's like an open world in No More Heroes 1, but all you can really do is like go dumpster diving for t-shirts and take on some story quests. And it's a really empty open world. And so people were like, oh, they should just get rid of it. It's pointless and stuff. But it's kind of part of like a meta story that like that open world is there. It's there kind of for a reason, you know? And so when you take that out, you kind of lose that. And so the main thing here is that Suda51 51 did not direct No More Heroes 2.
Right.
And so like it became more polished, still not very well polished, but mind you, just more polished. But at the same time, it just became kind of soulless. Like it just didn't have that same flair. It didn't have like the same, like you weren't as interested in the story. Like everything like that just does not work as well in 2 as it did in 1. Like in 1, they introduce the boss characters in like these really extravagant ways, and you get really invested in them, not because you like them or anything, but because they're just so interesting. Like they do things that are just weird, and everybody's really meta in it. So like they'll be talking about the fact that they're in a game and what their purpose is and stuff like that. That's like a big part of the No More Heroes series. That's kind of almost entirely lost in No More Heroes 2. Like it's just not there. And then No More Heroes 3 is like No More Heroes, the first one. Like it just has all of that back. So if you hated the overworld and going around the overworld and stuff in No More Heroes 1, if you've played that, then you're probably not going to like the fact that that's all back in No More Heroes 3. But if you're like me and you love No More Heroes 1 and thought No More Heroes 2 was like a huge disappointment, No More Heroes 3 is like, it's like it found its groove again.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that you're enjoying it.
Yeah. I'm playing one boss a day. I've been kind of limiting myself to that. So I'll do all the extra stuff that comes around. I go and do all that, and then I fight the boss. And then before the next boss fight comes up, I'll stop. And then, the next day I'll start up again on that boss and all the extra stuff around there. So I've been playing it. So it should take me like 10 days basically to get through it, since it's a 10 ranked thing. And I am right now ranked number 5. So I have 4 boss fights left, unless it pulls like a twist on me or something. But yeah, it's really good. The story's really good. The combat's really cool. There's a cool thing that's unique to this game that wasn't in the past No More Heroes games, where when you lose like a fight, it could be a boss fight or just even like a regular challenge or something, it gives you an opportunity to just retry right away. But when you retry, like a roulette wheel starts spinning, and it can land on these different faces of characters in the game. And based on who it lands on, you get like either a buff or a debuff or like nothing at all. So like one of them will basically like take you back into the fight as if you never died and you have full health again. But like the bosses or whatever you're fighting is already like at where they were at when you died. So like if you almost killed them and then you died, you'd jump back into the game with full health and they'd be almost dead,
Oh, nice.
Then there's like another one that gives you like, 50% more power on your attacks. And then there's one that like you probably know this because anybody who even vaguely knows about No More Heroes, but you have like a lightsaber, and when you run out of power, you have to like shake it to like, it's like one of those flashlights, you have to shake it to get the power back or whatever. So one of the negative roulette wheel spin things basically has you start the fight with like no power in your lightsaber. So you're basically like having to run away from whoever you're fighting long enough to recharge before you can start fighting.
That's awful.
So that's a negative one. Most of them are positive. But the thing is like every time you lose, the roulette wheel goes slower. So it's easier to time where you land if you keep losing. So if you're just getting slaughtered by a boss, you just cannot win. You're just getting crucified every single time. It just gets progressively easier as you lose. Like it's making it, it's going like, okay, here, I'll make it a little bit easier for you, And if you can get it right, I mean, the best thing to do, if you're just like sucking on a boss, which I've done a few times on a few bosses or other fights where I've just could not, I just, something about the fight is just killing me. I can't get past it. When you get the wheel slow enough, you can basically just land on the cat every time. And when you do that, that's where you basically jump back into the fight where you left off. And that, allows you to finish something that you might have otherwise been just stuck on forever. Of course, the trade-off is the fact that you got all those losses, And some people just don't want to do that. They want to like just start over and jump back in and do it on one go. They don't want the handicap. But I like that it's there, because if you just happen to be on a boss fight that just doesn't agree with you, you don't have to like suffer it as much as you would in like a lot of other games, because you can kind of just go like, okay, I'm just going to work my way through this by just, dying and jumping in again and dying and jumping in again. And I'll just keep whacking away. I'll keep getting the cat on the roulette wheel and I'll just finish the fight, eventually. So I like that. That just sounds like the opposite of what you were talking about with Sekiro.
Yeah.
Like No More Heroes 3, that the more you lose, the easier it gets, basically. Because the game's not really about challenge. Like they have like more challenging modes and stuff like that, but it's not really what it's about. It's about style. It's about, feel. Like when you're in the battle mode, you have like a lot of like cool options available to you. And it's about, the story and the meta story and all of that. That's what the game's about. So yeah, the main thing I can say about the game is if you've never played the series, you have to know going in that the game is very unpolished. Like you're gonna have parts where you're like, man, this game looks like horrible in this one area. Like you go in the overworld and it's like, that looks like an N64 texture. You're gonna be like, what the fuck is that? But you just have to kind of take the bad with the good.
Right. Yeah.
So that's No More Heroes 3, and that's the end of our On Tap segment. Now we're going to go into full spoilers. This is our segment where we talk about a show in full spoilers. This week, we're talking about What If Episode 4. What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? What did you think?
Excellent. This is exactly the kind of content I want to see from What If. It was pretty dark. That's fine. What If stories often got dark, and this is one of the darkest ones they've done so far.
Yeah. You probably know me well enough to know this was my favorite.
Yes. I saw you tweeting about it.
Yeah. But I mean, even different, from when we've talked about like Black Mirror, how much I love that gut punch.
Yes.
And that's what this has in it. I absolutely adore really just dark endings,
Yeah.
And this had this, but it's not just that it was dark in its writing, but it's like, man, of all the voice cast that's involved in this, Benedict Cumberbatch really brought emotion to his performance in this,
Yes, he did.
Like there's the part where he's like over, like after he resurrected her, but like his girlfriend, but she's dying anyways. And he's like, no. And it's like, it's so sad. It's like, it breaks you when you watch it.
Yes. It's so great.
You just see how much he's like declining as he's working to try to bring her back and stuff, like the shadows building under his eyes.
Basically, this episode, What If, imagines a universe where when Stephen Strange got into the car accident that turned him into Doctor Strange, he had his girlfriend with him in the vehicle. Mm-hmm. And instead of Doctor Strange's hands getting mangled, his girlfriend, Christine, ends up getting killed.
Yeah.
And so this event still sets him on the same path that he took in the regular MCU. This sets him on the path of becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. He defeats Dormammu, except he can't get over Christine's death.
Mm-hmm.
And so he tries to use the Eye of Agamotto to undo that event, to go back in time and undo that event. And every time he tries, she just ends up dead in a different way.
Yeah, it's very Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, it's very Groundhog's Day, yes.
Which again, if you've listened to me on this podcast at all, that's like my favorite TV trope.
Yes. Until like the Ancient One visits him to let him know that Christine's death is an unchangeable point in time. Like it's something that has to happen, at least in that universe, because it doesn't make sense for it to have to happen across all universes when it didn't happen in the MCU. So at least in that universe, it's something that has to happen.
Mm-hmm. It's a fixed point in time, or as they call it, an absolute point in time.
Yeah, an absolute point in time. To which, like Strange insists that there's got to be a way to change it. And she just said, no, it would take an incredible amount of power to do so. And, doing so would destroy the universe.
Yeah. Not just because Doctor Strange would never become who he becomes.
Right.
And saves it from Dormammu, but just in general, like it would just tear the universe apart. The act of breaking that absolute point in time.
Yeah. It rips apart the fabric of that universe. But he's insistent on it. So, he goes to find the library of Cagliostro, because apparently Cagliostro had figured out how to change an absolute point.
Cagliostro being a big Marvel character in like the Doctor Strange mythos, he wrote the Book of Cagliostro, which is the one that was stolen by Caecilius in the Doctor Strange movie. So that book that he steals to do his dark ritual stuff, that's the Book of Cagliostro. Yeah, and he's also in the comics, I guess he taught Doctor Doom. He's the guy who taught Doctor Doom magic.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so he's like a major character of the Doctor Strange mythos. And it's this library. And the only guy there from the library is a guy named Obang.
Yeah, Obang. He calls himself the custodian of the library.
Yeah. In the comics, like, that's supposed to be Cagliostro's real name.
I kind of figured that was really Cagliostro, considering nobody else shows up to claim their Cagliostro.
Yeah.
While Doctor Strange is inside of his library. So... So kind of figured.
Yeah. After this episode, I like immediately jumped in and was doing my research because I knew there were a lot of like Easter eggs and stuff that were relevant that passed by me because I just didn't know enough about the comics.
But studying Cagliostro's book, Strange figures out that the way to obtain the power he needs is by basically absorbing the essences of these powerful mystical creatures.
Yeah.
Right?
Again, these are some of the Easter eggs, a lot of these.
Yes.
Shumagora, the tentacle monster, he's been like a big figure in, Doctor Strange.
Was that the same tentacle monster that Red Skull was trying to summon in the first What If episode?
I've seen mixed things and I was looking it up. I was seeing some people saying yes and some people saying no, that it's just a similar monster that's actually based on the creature at the beginning of the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Huh.
So I don't know. I don't know if they are the same or not. That's kind of like debated right now. But also the Goblin Force, which is supposed to be the opposite of the Phoenix Force from the X-Men universe.
Oh, yeah.
Two-headed thing, which is a shape-shifting mystical creature that the Fantastic Four beat in the comics. And even Shou Lao, the immortal dragon that, Danny Rand has to defeat to become the immortal Iron Fist.
Oh, yeah. And of course, Doctor Strange easily defeats and absorbs them all.
Yeah.
And
I absolutely fucking loved the animation in this episode. The animation and the art. When it was showing like Doctor Strange with all the different creatures kind of in him and how it like was influencing the way he looked, at different times, all these different kind of like demonic kind of visages he had at different points. And then he like would contain them and he'd go back to himself, but he had this like, he just looked tired and sunken eyes and stuff. But then like later on in the episode, they had the part where after he had finally saved his girlfriend,
he looks
Christine,
completely monstrous.
Yeah, and she's like, oh my god, and then he like kind of gains control back and stuff. But it's like the idea of like all these like monsters inhabiting him and the effect that's had on him is like,
yeah, it's really cool.
I love the way it was animated. I love the art direction on it. It's like easily the best in that regard. It's like, I think objectively the best animation wise of all of the What If ones so far. Like it's just the most detailed.
Finishes his absorptions. Then the Ancient One confronts him and lets him know that she actually split that reality in two.
Yeah, so she split him in two.
Yeah, so she split him in two. So she created two separate timelines within the same universe to allow for so there is now a version of Doctor Strange who didn't go forward and try to use the Eye of Agamotto to change the past. And she basically tells the other Doctor Strange that there's this evil Doctor Strange now and that he has to defeat him to save the universe. And the other Doctor Strange, the evil one, wants to absorb his other self, to gain the ultimate power he needs to finally do what he set out to do.
Well, I kind of like that they don't say evil. They say like they misguided or, know.
Yeah, because he's not
like just
evil.
Out to hurt people and stuff.
Yeah, he's not out to hurt people. He's set on his goal, which is to bring his girlfriend back.
Yeah, and like when he's being confronted with like the world ending because of it, if he was evil, his reaction would be, I don't care or something. Instead, his reaction is like, no, I'll fix that too. Like he just thinks like, I'll get to that after,
Right.
Like I'll bring her back and then I'll save the world. Like everything will be fine. Kind of like he believes that despite all evidence to the contrary,
This leads to a fight between the two strangers. And this is where, this is going to end on a dark note because I guess like the heroic Strange loses the battle. He's absorbed. And finally, a Strange, or Perfect Strange, as we will call him now, has the power to undo the absolute point, which he does. He brings Christine back, but now, like we said before, he's in a demonic looking form and she's terrified by him. But not only that, the universe is collapsing around him and, she is basically melting away.
Well, she's part of the universe, so he might have brought her back from death, but now as the universe fades away, so is she.
She's fading away. So basically she's dying anyway, and all he did was for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the great tragedy.
Centuries, snacking on all sorts of mythical creatures, so that he could build up enough power to then go save her, and ends up losing her anyways, and the rest of the world with her, And
this is the first time, like, he notices the Watcher.
Yeah, that was a really cool touch. It
was a really cool touch.
You see the Watcher every so often. There's a really cool shot in last week's episode where, like, somebody's driving through the desert, and you see the Watcher. It was
Coulson driving through the desert.
Yeah, and you see the Watcher looking over, like, through the sky, like, kind of like transparent. And here, first there's a moment where Strange, like, kind of notices him.
Yes. Because the Watcher talks directly to the viewer about how much of an idiot Strange is being.
Yeah.
And Strange is like, who's there?
Yeah. And then later on, like, straight up communicates with him directly. Like, they have a straight up conversation.
Yeah, they have a straight because Strange asked the Watcher, he's like, well, you're a god, you can undo this. And he's like, I can, but who knows what effect that would have on other universes? And it's not worth it. That's why we don't interfere. I don't interfere because the consequences could be basically. Yeah. And basically he just tells Strange to flat out, it's like, but this is because you're a dumbass.
Yeah. This is your fault. I can't do this.
Yeah, this is your fault. And so we watch Strange, in his last moments and we watch that universe collapse around him, till it gets to till it condenses.
It's like he's inside of a gem or something almost. He's like, he has protective barrier around him that's like only big enough for just him, and he's the only one there.
Yes.
And he's just kind of floating off in the ether of emptiness.
Yes.
But yeah, this was, like I've alluded to and said already, easily my favorite episode of What If. I came out of this episode, as dark as it is, I came out with a huge smile. Not because I love bad things happening to Doctor Strange, but because it was just such a fucking good episode.
Yeah. It felt like an episode of like The Twilight Zone or something,
Oh, yeah. I mean, to me, this was easily the best What If episode. And not only that, but could be the best episode of anything Marvel Disney Plus so far.
That's high praise. Yeah.
Like this easily, I think, competes with like the best episodes of WandaVision or of Loki or something, in my opinion. And another thing that I thought was kind of miraculous about this is that one of the biggest problems with What If in the last, 3 episodes, the episodes always feel like they're rushing through. Like they're just missing so much, and it just feels like so condensed. Of course, in the first episode, the Captain Carter one was like the worst with that, because they literally just condensed a 2-hour movie into half an hour, with some small changes. And then a little bit less so with the next two, but even still, like it just felt like event to event to event. And it just felt like there was no moment for you to connect to any of the characters. It was all about concept, and there was like no moment to connect here. This episode had a lot of stuff that happened in the episode. Like there was a lot of plot to get through, a lot of events to work its way through. But to me, it never felt like rushed like the other ones did.
Yeah.
I never felt like, we're moving along too quickly. Feel
like we're trying to tell the story of a 2-hour movie in like 30 minutes, again, like that was a problem with the first one. They fixed those issues, obviously. Like, this was a story that was written to fit the confines of a 30-minute runtime.
Yeah.
It shows.
I mean, it still had a lot of stuff that happened in it, but it never felt rushed,
No.
And it always felt deeply personal, whereas a lot of the other ones never, didn't. That was, the biggest failing of the other ones, is that they'd have some big thing happen, but they rush through it so quickly that, you never have a moment to connect to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And here, you're, deeply connecting to Strange's sadness about what he's dealing with, and the kind of the trauma of what he's dealing with is ever present throughout it. So you're deeply connected, and it's the way it's paced, but it's also, like I said, it's Benedict Cumberbatch did an amazing job. I think I brought up at a different point that they have all these actors that are back from the cast that are doing a great job, but a lot of them, they haven't really done voice work. So they're more accustomed to just acting on screen, and that's a totally different skill set than working as a voice voice actor. Benedict Cumberbatch has done a lot of voice acting too. And so he's particularly good at doing that, at like bringing across like a lot of emotion in that type of a role, more so than anybody else in any of the other episodes so far. Like, I didn't really feel a sense of loss when all the mightiest superheroes were killed in the last episode, you know? In the last episode, right. We lost, like, you know, Iron Man, we lost Thor, we lost, you know, Hawkeye, Black Widow, the Hulk. We lost all of them. They all got killed. At no point was I, like, emotionally affected by it. It was all concept.
Yeah, it was all kind. Yeah, you weren't supposed to have a sense of loss with that episode.
Yeah, but here, like, Doctor Strange loses his girlfriend, who was a kind of a minor part, really, of the first Doctor Strange movie. She hasn't really had that big of a role in the series, and yet they did so much to make me connect to her. You know, like, they brought a lot of her humor and her dynamic and her chemistry with Doctor Strange in just like the short moments before her continuous deaths. They would like have her like tell him like, oh, when you do your speech, you should just run down like you're on The Price is Right. And like all these kind of like little things, and they had like little recurring things that went through where he brought that up again to her on one of the other times when he was trying to save her. And like all these different ways that they did this, they really sold kind of the relationship between the two of them better than they did in the Doctor Strange movie. And it just made everything work for that ending, for that dark ending.
Right.
So yeah, I'm super psyched for what's left to come and What If. I feel like every episode's been better than the one before it.
Yeah, it's definitely been good.
So that's it. So next week, we're going to be talking about What If Episode 5, and we're also going to be talking about the first episode of Season 3 of What We Do in the Shadows. So stay tuned for that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Leave us some feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. As I always say, you can reach me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Night.
Night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.